The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
We are back live. It's no longer repeats, Lewis. We have come and gone from our vacations, and now it's time to get back to work.
Time to deal with reality again.
Lewis was on the West Coast. You did all sorts of stuff. You're wearing a shirt, which you got. This is actually funny. When I was last in LA a few months ago, we had a great, I got the opportunity to actually get a tour over at, well, can I say where? I mean, the shirt kind of indicates where.
Yeah, you can say where.
Yeah, at Disney, because we have a member on the show who works at Disney.
Yeah.
And I got a great tour. And then Lewis was out there on a completely unrelated trip to anything I did, of course, because I went 9 months ago. And he was able to get a tour as well, and he also got a free T-shirt for an upcoming movie.
Yeah, it looks pretty good too. It's about video game characters.
Were you impressed with the tour that you received? Were you impressed with the Disney facilities?
It was yeah, it was interesting. It was cool to see that stuff. You know, I went to film school. I dipped into that a little bit. It was nice to see some high budget production things happening.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
And while Lewis was on the West Coast, I was in Argentina visiting family on vacation. Had some great flight delays. I had some great turbulence coming back. Didn't throw up. I mean, like I said, Lewis, I don't really have problems like Lewis does on planes or on automobiles. But the one place where I don't really do that well is on boats. Something about the up and down motion when it gets a little bit rough, it really I just don't do well with it.
Yeah, but you did take a boat ride, right?
I took a boat ride because for a couple days I went from Argentina over to Uruguay. And I took this boat. It was 50 minutes on the way over. And I'm about, or rather it was an hour on the way over. You're just basically crossing. It's not even open ocean. I mean,
it's like
because
a channel.
It's like a channel, right, exactly. Where Uruguay and Argentina kind of meet, there's a river. And it's really inside of the channel. It's really a river more so than it is ocean. And it was perfectly smooth for about 45 minutes of the 1 hour ride. And then I start to feel the swells going a little bit. I had taken my Dramamine. I had taken all the necessary precautions. And it starts getting a little rough, I must admit, and I start feeling a little queasy. And they actually come on and make an announcement saying that we are expecting some moderate movement for the remainder of the trip, and people should stay in their seats. Honestly, I think it wouldn't even have been that bad if they hadn't made the announcement. Because if they don't make the announcement, I'm thinking, okay, it's getting a little rough, but it's not bad enough to warrant an announcement. But then they make the announcement, and I think it's honestly the announcement itself that makes me start feeling more sick.
Certainly can't help.
No, and I just kind of sat there without moving for the remaining 15 minutes, and fortunately, nothing happened. And on the way back, it was a 3 hour ride because we came back from somewhere else. It was like a 3-way trip. And I was pretty worried, obviously, being on a boat for 3 hours. If after 30 minutes it starts getting a little rough, it's going to be a long remaining 2.5 hours, you know, but it was perfectly smooth, like being on a plane. I mean, really.
Oh, good. You made it.
I made it back. Yeah, no problem at all. Another funny thing was that we, outside, I rented an apartment which was on the 8th floor of a building in a pretty, central area in Buenos Aires. And a lot of mornings around 9 a.m., I started hearing a megaphone, okay? Some kind of loud voice, okay? And I thought, there's protests all the time. People protest here pretty regularly because there's a lot to protest as far as the government and the local police and everything goes. But then I thought, this doesn't really sound like a protest, and it seems to be driving around. And it was a guy sitting on my brother had Natan, who will be back tomorrow with us. It's a guy who has a loud speaker, and he sits on the back of a truck, and they drive around, and he talks about the products that he's buying and selling. But when you're 8 stories up, you can't really distinguish the voice, so it just all you hear is very, very loud enough to kind of vibrate the entire building, essentially. Right. Every single time I look out, can't see anything. That's the type of thing where if in New York City, some random guy starts doing that to sell computer parts, the police show up pretty quickly and give the guy probably a $300 noise pollution ticket or something.
Yeah, not in Argentina.
Not the case.
No.
Not the case at all. Interesting thing also, gay marriage, which is legal in Argentina, just not an issue. Never came up, and I'm not saying it didn't come up in the sense that people don't care, were arguing, or rather that they were all on one side of it. It's just that it's not an issue, right? I mean, here we're used to with politics, gay marriage. It's a huge issue. You talk about it all the time. Comes up in personal conversations. It's on television all the time. It's a theme in newspapers. People are talking about it, political shows, because it's one of the ways that the religious right is trying to hold on to that very tenuous grasp of power that they are quickly losing as the conservative bigots kind of age out of life and pass away and young people replace them. It just didn't come up. I mean, there was not a single conversation in Argentina at all that even related to homosexuality or gay marriage at all. I'm not saying that there isn't homophobia in Argentina. That's not at all what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that translating that homophobia, which exists in many countries in some parts, into a discussion about whether there should or shouldn't be gay marriage just doesn't come up. It just and hasn't affected anything at all, the same way it hasn't here in Massachusetts.
Right. I'm sure there are any number of countries we can look to where that is the case. But you know, we have a lot of problems here.
There's certainly an issue with gay marriage. People are very fixated on that. Here's something else that's funny. When we got into Uruguay, took a bus to Montevideo, which is the capital of the country, and get into the bus station. And it's one of these situations where you need a taxi, right? You go out front, and there's a big line. You have to form a line, and there's a guy. It's not clear whether he's working in any kind of official capacity or whether he's just trying to get tips. He's the guy who calls the taxis that are waiting and gets you into the taxi, okay? Maybe he's working in an official capacity. Maybe he's not, as is very common in a lot of South American countries. So all these nice taxis are coming up, and nice taxis. There's no town cars, let me make it clear. Nice for Argentina and Uruguay. Nice taxis coming up. Finally gets to be my turn to get into a taxi. The thing barely makes it up to where the guy is standing and waiting. It's making one of those noises where it sounds like the muffler's completely fallen off. There is no muffler at all. The vehicle barely even is moving. It's almost like it's the size of a very small American two-door car, but it has 4 doors. So somehow they've crammed the 4 doors in there where the door is 2 feet wide and you can barely even get inside of it.
Right.
And I'm thinking, this thing is going to break down. This is just not a good situation. I tell the guy where we're going, okay? Not having ever been there, I assume the taxi driver will know where my hotel is, right? Start driving around, and the guy starts looking a little bit less confident. And he says to me, is it in neighborhood A or neighborhood B? So at this point, I'm thinking what he's doing is he's trying to test whether I know where it is. And if I give any indication I don't know where this hotel is,
he's going to take you all over the place.
He's going to start taking me all over the place. Exactly. Typical Argentinian move. Never been to Uruguay. Don't know if that's common. So I try to play it off like I just don't remember exactly because it's been a little while since I've been there, right? So I say, it's been a while since I've been at this hotel. I don't remember exactly where it is. Grasping for any straw to make it seem like I've been there before and I would know if he starts driving me out of the city.
Yeah.
Okay. So then at this point, we drive to some kind of dead end. It's very dark. It's about 9 p.m. at this point. And I forget about he's going to drive me around. I'm thinking we're getting kidnapped at this point, okay? Right. And I start getting very nervous, and I start looking at the door to see if there's even a lock on it. Because for a while in Argentina, that was a thing where you would get into the cab, the doors don't open from the inside, they take you wherever, and they take your money. And then he radioed in asking for help finding the place, and I realized he really had no bad intentions. It's just maybe me being the paranoid, kind of naturalized American thinking the worst, but really nothing bad happened at all.
I'd say it's probably good to be cautious like that.
It is, and the reality is that people in Argentina will actually tell you, in Uruguay, you're completely fine. It's in Argentina that you still have to be careful about where you get into cabs and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, we were able to arrive unfettered and uninjured as well.
Yeah, luckily I didn't need to send any money to Uruguay to some
ransom.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Uruguay, it was interesting.
I'd show up with a briefcase at some specific destination with a translator, and
it's funny because a lot of people say that Buenos Aires is like Paris if the streets weren't cared for 20 years and it just kind of started to crumble a little bit. Montevideo, the capital of Uruguay, is like Buenos Aires if no one took care of that for 20 years and the streets started to further crumble. It's an older place, and we went to the old part of the city, and all of a sudden, trying to find a bathroom, go into some kind of hospital / medical center where just clearly people are walking about. There's no toilet paper in any of the bathrooms. Why isn't there toilet paper in the bathrooms? Because someone takes all the rolls of toilet paper, sits outside and hands you toilet paper as you walk in, asking for a tip. Very, very typical move. We went to this kind of barbecue haven in the center of the old city, and none of the bathrooms have toilet paper, but there's plenty of people sitting outside who will hand you a roll if you tip.
So why don't you just say, give me a roll or I'm going to punch you in the face?
Well, there may be a language barrier with that. I don't know. And also, you know, the smart thing really down there, I think, is just to carry toilet paper with you. That's just, and in the old part of Montevideo.
I'll remember that next time if I ever plan to visit.
Exactly. And we actually went to, it's funny, I went to this, we went to a restaurant, and it was a perfectly fine restaurant. Time to ask for the check. And the guy comes over, and he basically has a ton of little slips, almost like you would get in a bar. And he's been kind of just leaving them on the table, and he says, okay, it's time, let me total it up for you. No formal invoice or anything like that. He takes out one of those calculators that has like the little leather cover on it. You know, those really, really old calculators?
Oh, yeah.
He takes it out. And we're talking about, like, quickly at a glance saying, like, okay, it's 30, it's 75, you know, at a 20-to-1 exchange ratio. And he starts adding it up on that thing to give us a final bill of sale. Very, very different, you know, than places where you're used to, even in Argentina, where you get like a normal itemized receipt of some kind.
Off a you know a point of sale system on a computer where everything's you know listed. Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else happened. A bird went to the bathroom on my shoulder. I mean, by mere inches, it missed getting my head.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it was winter, so I had a jacket on.
I mean, it's a shame that it hit your shoulder instead of your head.
Right, you would have found it pretty funny. I was getting into a cousin's car, and we were about to be driven home, and I felt like a smack. It was kind of like it was under pressure. I mean, you would have thought that maybe, you know, a bouncy ball or something of more weight had hit me.
So it was like the dense fecal matter.
It was very dense, and it was, I mean, literally like a smack on my shoulder. It almost knocked me to the ground, to be completely honest. I was almost rolling around on the ground trying to get up after it.
Probably safe to say that the feces reached terminal velocity.
That's the exact conversation. Afterwards, we were all walking, and I started saying, what is the terminal velocity of pigeon feces? Like, what's the fastest speed that it could achieve?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it must have been close because it was a significant impact. And then let's just say, it's a good thing I brought 2 toothbrushes with me on this trip because one of them needed to be thrown out in order to remedy the pigeon situation.
Yes, that's a good one.
They say it's good luck, though.
Was it?
I don't know, not yet. Another really funny observation is, the New York police officer, Lewis, as you know, is known to be a very manly, stereotypically manly man, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
And generally, police in the U.S. overall are considered to be manly, whatever that means, whatever cultural connotations that has. You think of police officers as very manly. Now, in Argentina, it's very common that everybody is kind of on kiss hello, you know, men with men, women with men, women amongst each other. You know, it's just normal. Everybody kisses each other hello.
Like on the cheek, right?
On the cheek,
Is it
exactly.
a double cheek or just one cheek?
It's not Spain, so it's just a single cheek for most people. Walking out of a local pizza place, I'm walking by, and I see 2 police officers dressed very similarly to what you would see 2 NYPD officers. It's kind of like the shift change. It was 10 or 11 at night, and they kiss each other on the cheek. And, of course, it's no big deal. I'm on kiss hello with everybody in my family. It's just a cultural norm. No big deal at all. But the contrast, getting used to police officers in the U.S. who are very, very manly men, and they go to the gym and they get a beer after work, right? To see police officers very casually, when the shift change happens, kissing each other on the cheek, fascinating because of what it starts making you think of. And again, I wasn't surprised. Of course, I know that that's just what it is. But seeing that, the police officers in uniform kissing each other with no air of questioning their sexuality, right? Nobody says, oh, they must look at these police officers kissing each other. They're clearly gay men. Of course. This doesn't happen. It was fascinating.
Yeah. Would you say that the police officers in Argentina are less likely to pepper spray a group of sitting college students?
Like casual pepper spray cop Lieutenant John Pike?
Right.
I'm not going to say that.
Who's off the force now?
He is off the force.
Yeah.
Argentinian police have a long history of doing a lot of really bad stuff. And the police involved, I mean, let me put it this way. For a while in Argentina, if you're going on, like where we live, if you go on vacation for a couple weeks, you might call the police and say, I'm going to be gone. Keep an eye on the place in case you see any activity. That's the last thing you would have done in Argentina for many, many years, because the police would come in and rob you knowing that you're not there. I asked people about it this time. They're saying it's the police you just kind of ignore. It's not that they're good, it's not that they're bad. They're police, they're just symbols of power, and you don't get in their way. Hopefully they won't get in your way.
Yeah. Good advice.
So anyway, good trip, glad to be back. Couple things to tell you about. Number one, somebody put up a Yahoo question, Lewis, answers.yahoo.com, saying, does anyone else think David Pakman of the David Pakman Show is kind of an idiot? It's a legitimate question, but what I would really like would be for our fans to go in and put some answers in there, make them funny, make them serious, whatever it is that you want. Let's answer this question in a legitimate way that will address really the heart of the issue. Am I just kind of like Bill O'Reilly, which is what the question asks? Twitter.com/David Pakman Show. It's one of our more recent tweets. You can find the link to it. Also, Facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Does anyone else think David Pakman is kind of an idiot? Also, for members, we're going to be having a member kind of video call-in in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be for members only. It's going to be kind of a roundtable conference. Members will be able to get a special private link through a service called Spreecast, which we've been testing. And you can ask us questions. We'll hang out after the show. It'll be like around 3 p.m. Eastern time, sometime in the next couple of weeks. You've got to sign up, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to sign up. And by the way, today and tomorrow, the last 2 days for the David Pakman Show Summer Membership Special, we'll give you a free t-shirt with your David Pakman Show yearly membership. Go to davidpakman.com/summer. Let's take a break. A lot of politics to talk about. Great to be back. Stay tuned.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
You can support the David Pakman Show free, but when you shop at Amazon.com, Lewis, you use the black banner at davidpakman.com. I actually got a really nice email a few days ago from someone who just bought a new house and decided to do the entire outfitting of all appliance and electronics in that house through our Amazon link, really going out of his way to support the David Pakman Show with money he was going to spend anyway. So really a big, easy thing to do.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else?
Okay. You can also, of course, become a David Pakman Show member. The membership program is made possible in part by liberalbias.com. Lewis, you know better than anybody that liberal bias is everywhere. You can find it in polls, statistics, facts of all kinds. You have to be sure to know about all the ways that facts are actually just liberal bias. Go to liberalbias.com. Michael Jones. Michael Jones is our new member of the day. It's great to say hi to Michael Jones. It's great to hear that North Korean techno music, which I have not heard now for a couple weeks almost.
It's been too long.
It has been too long. I got an email from someone saying Stephen Colbert is now using something that sounds surprisingly close to our North Korean techno music on his show. I haven't seen the segment, though.
So he's copying us?
I wouldn't say that.
Colbert's copying us?
I don't think so. It must be some kind of coincidence.
We'll see.
But I do want to say a very special thank you to Michael Jones, a David Pakman Show member, davidpakman.com/membership. Let's talk about Mitt Romney's fantastic voyage through Europe, Israel, and gaffe after gaffe that he made. Let's start with step number one. Mitt Romney aide Richard Gorka said to reporters when they tried to ask Mitt Romney questions, "Kiss my ass, this is a holy site." Now, you would think that maybe they would be better off actually asking Mitt Romney questions during the planned question time rather than just yelling them out. Well, that's the problem. Mitt Romney brought all of these, brought this press pool along with him on this fantastic European trip, and the guy won't answer questions. So the reporters have no chance. They're trying to report, right? I mean, they're reporters after all. They start yelling questions out, and this Gorka guy, Rick Gorka, says, "Kiss my ass, this is a holy site." Let's look at the video, Lewis, and listen to the audio of this.
Governor Romney! Governor Romney, do you have a statement for the Palestinians?
What about your gas?
Governor Romney, do you feel that your gas have overshadowed your foreign trip?
Site for the Polish people. Show some respect.
Governor Romney, just
Show some respect.
We haven't had another chance to ask you questions.
This is a holy site for the Polish people. Show some respect.
All right. That's a legitimate question. Are your gaffes overshadowing this entire trip? I would argue the answer is yes. So anyway,
I mean, the whole thing's a circus.
The whole thing is a circus. And Rick Gorka eventually apologizing and saying, you know, I'm sorry. He called the two of the reporters that he yelled at and apologized to them.
Apparently, it's respectful to tell people to kiss your ass at a holy site.
Yeah, at a holy site, the main thing really is to ask for ass kissing from reporters who you've invited on the tour.
Yeah.
It's kind of standard.
It's a brilliant show of respect.
Mother Teresa used to do it all the time. She would ask the press corps all the time to kiss her ass.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just, it was regular. It was a regular thing.
Commonplace.
Why not?
Yeah.
Louis, you do it when you travel, don't you?
Of course.
Louis, instead of tipping, when he does curbside check-in at the airport, instead of tipping, he says, kiss my ass, I'm going to a holy site.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's understandable that the Mitt Romney team is going to be blowing fuses because Mitt Romney imploded when he went to Europe. I mean, it's so embarrassing. And I know that it probably won't move the polls much in the U.S. because people are completely locked into this, Obama's the devil mentality. But you should really be concerned about this Romney implosion, this embarrassing implosion in Europe. And Romney was showing up at places in Poland and getting greeted by Obama supporters, yelling Obama's name. Actually, there were even more, then there were Ron Paul supporters. And you know, I find Ron Paul supporters incredibly annoying when it comes to no matter what we're posting about on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, the response is about how I don't understand how Ron Paul has the delegates.
Yeah.
Putting that aside, I love the fact that they're bothering Mitt Romney when he goes to Europe. It's fantastic.
They're finally serving a purpose.
And is Rick Gorka the best staffer that Romney could get with all that money? That's kind of pathetic.
I guess so. I mean, you can buy elections with money, but you can't buy good staffers.
Can't buy a good press secretary, I guess.
Huh.
You can certainly buy an election, though. Then Mitt Romney goes on to talk about how great the Israeli healthcare system is. And a lot of the things he says are great about it are the same things he says make Obamacare really, really a bad thing for the United States. He did this near the end of the foreign trip, and it started raising eyebrows because he says that it's fantastic how the Israeli healthcare system has reduced costs through the involvement of the government. And that's, of course, one of the main issues he has with Obamacare, which, of course, if we go back up the chain, is also based on the Romney Care package that was passed here in Massachusetts. This guy is making no sense to anybody, is he?
Is he making sense to the Europeans? Why is he over there?
Yeah, I don't know.
What's he doing?
To show that Europeans don't hate him? I don't know. I don't know what he's doing.
Good. Well, we should figure that out.
He then was talking to a bunch of donors saying that that Israel spends a lot less on healthcare than the U.S. does. And he says that the reason that Israel has been able to control costs so well is because of the heavy role that government plays and, brace yourself, Louis, the requirement that everyone have coverage, right? Now, why doesn't he like Obamacare? Because government is too involved and you are forced to have coverage. Amazing.
Well, when you're Mitt Romney, you have the freedom to say things that are the complete opposite of each other, mean both of them, and run your campaign on both sides of the issue.
Yeah, but why does he have that ability? Because he's rich? Or because he's a Republican?
Honestly, I think it's partially because he's a Republican and the people that are voting for him don't actually pay attention to anything he says. And also because he's been doing it the whole time and he's just become a master at it.
Couple other notes about Romney. Mitt Romney, the anti-Romney campaign should be, who do you want being the president of the United States? The law professor, community organizer, who as recently as a few years ago was still paying student loans, or the registered lobbyist? Because now we have confirmed that Mitt Romney was a registered lobbyist, bringing in $1.3 billion in federal money for the 2002 Olympics. He loves to talk about how he saved the 2002 Olympics. He could not have done it without the lobbying that he did. And he did this as a registered lobbyist. We remember, of course, he criticized Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum for their lobbying pasts, and it turns out that Mitt Romney was a lobbyist. Okay?
Well, what if we just talked about his ties with lobbyists? I mean, that should be enough.
That should be enough, too. He went on Piers Morgan on CNN and he said, hey, there are people who are trying to attack success and are trying to attack our success. That's not going to be successful. When you attack success, you have less of it. And that's what we have in our economy over the last few years. dividing America based on who has money and who doesn't, who is successful and who is less successful. That is not the American way. A lot of word jumble in there.
How many times can you say success in one?
He then went on and he said, he also added, my successors have not succeeded at reframing my successes as anything but successes. And I challenge them to succeed at preventing me from being Barack Obama's successor this November. Nobody knows what he's talking about at this point.
Brilliant.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
He's quite a wordsmith, isn't he?
Did he write that?
He's like a regular old Jack London.
He's got to have writers. There's no way he's coming up with
He can't
this
be
stuff.
coming up with that stuff on it. It's too well crafted. It's too on point and just so well written. Then let's look at that Mitt Romney ad. Mitt Romney had this ad, the "You didn't build that" ad, okay? And it stars a businessman, and this is all based around the out-of-context statement from President Obama saying people who build businesses didn't do it on their own. Let's take a look at the ad.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Mitt Romney et je suis président du comité d'organisation des Jeux olympiques d'hiver.
The colorful $37 million ceremony was the most elaborate Olympic opening ever, fitting for games touted as a showcase of superlatives, the fastest, most daring, the best. Now add another, the costliest.
You know what? I'm getting the sense this is the wrong ad.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not the right ad. This is the actual ad. Let's take a look at it, Lewis. Here we go.
If you've been successful, you didn't get there on your own. Just if you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
My father's hands didn't build this company. My hands didn't build this company. Through hard work and a little bit of luck, we built this business. Why are you demonizing us for it?
Okay, so there's the ad. That's the correct ad. So then we went in and we found out, well, who is this guy, right? Who is this guy? He's Jack Gilchrist. What, did he really build this business or didn't he? Well, it turns out that he received millions in government money. Okay, this is a guy who received millions in government money. In 1999, Gilchrist Metal received $800,000 in tax-exempt revenue bonds issued by the New Hampshire Business Finance Authority. He got U.S. Navy contracts, etc., etc. So as we know, Lewis, the government had a big, big role to play in Jack Gilchrist's success. But you know what? Let's put all of that aside for a second. I don't even care if Gilchrist took government loans or bonds or got contracts or any of that stuff. He wasn't going to be able to run that company without the roads that the government built, without the ports that his company requires, and he also didn't create the laws that allow him to have the contracts that his company enforces. So even putting aside all the stuff about all the money he got from the government, it still doesn't matter. He still didn't do it 100% on his own, and I think that's really the point.
No, but I mean, sadly, this will probably still be a very effective ad.
Last thing, and I know we're over time here on Mitt Romney, Harry Reid, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, fellow Mormon senator from Nevada, I'm sorry, I apologize to all, I know that I say that wrong sometimes. Nevada is the correct way to say it. He is now claiming that Mitt Romney did not pay taxes for 10 years, and that's the reason he's holding back on the tax returns. He says that a Bain Capital investor recently told him he didn't pay any taxes for 10 years. If this is true, Lewis, and it hasn't yet been proven, but this is the accusation, this would be the reason why Mitt Romney is not releasing his tax returns and is going to do everything he can not to, although I believe eventually he's going to have no choice. He's going to have to release those tax returns.
And what if for 10 years they don't exist?
In other words, there just are no tax returns? They've been destroyed, much like the records of that accident where he was driving in France and someone ended up dying?
No. But what if, what's going to happen if it's true that he didn't pay taxes for 10 years?
I don't know.
And that's reflected in his returns.
What should happen is that people realize that this is an unfair system that Mitt Romney wants to make even more unfair and has personally benefited from being unfair. What will happen? I don't know. We know voters go against their own best interests very, very often. Let's take a break. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/David Pakman Show. Let's take a break. I want to come back and talk about George Zimmerman's Sean Hannity interview, incredible stuff, and a lot more. Stay tuned.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
George Zimmerman is facing second-degree murder charges for killing Trayvon Martin earlier this year. Of course, Trayvon Martin was the unarmed teen carrying iced tea and Skittles who apparently made George Zimmerman feel so threatened that he needed to stand his ground and shoot him dead. He came out of the woodwork and he did an interview with Sean Hannity. And Sean Hannity, the entire interview is incredible, but I want to focus in on one section, which is where Sean Hannity asks him if he regrets anything about it and would he have done anything differently. And George Zimmerman says, no, it was all God's plan. It was all part of God's plan. Let's look at this interview here.
Is there anything you regret? Do you regret getting out of the car to follow Trayvon that night?
No, sir.
Do you regret that you had a gun that night?
No, sir.
Do you feel you wouldn't be here for this interview if you didn't have a gun?
No, sir.
You feel you would not be here?
I feel that it was all God's plan, and for me to second guess it or judge it.
Is there anything you might do differently in retrospect now that time has passed a little bit?
No, sir.
You know what really irritates me about this? When he talks about how I don't even know how to explain this. George Zimmerman says this thing, which is sometimes common among those who are more religious, which is, I don't want to be the judge of anything that happened because it's all part of God's plan. And if I am to judge that, then who am I to judge God's plan? And it's this idea that has this double-edged effect of, number one, it's seen by some as kind of like intelligent. Or like you hear some people hear George Zimmerman talking like that and sitting there very calmly and saying, no, sir, you know, it's all part of God's plan, and who am I to judge it or make any judgment? Some people hear that and they think, wow, George Zimmerman, he's insightful, he's a deep human being in a way that is very unique to this country, let's put it that way, where that type of nonsense is considered to be in some way admirable, okay? But number two, it's this idea that, wait a second, it was God's plan, so you have no free will? Is that essentially what he's saying? Every death that happens, there's just no free will. Why even have the attorney then? Because it's God's plan what's going to happen in his trial, right? Why are you getting an attorney? Why are you raising all this money online and then acting very shadily with your wife to shift the money around to make it seem like you have less money so you can... It's God's plan. What are you doing? Why? Just wait, it's God's plan. He'll either get you out of it or he won't.
His life is ruined, and to say that you have no regrets and you wouldn't do anything differently because it was God's plan, on one hand seems like insanity, but on the other hand makes you sound like you're genuinely very religious and that
you're just giving away.
It was God's plan.
Yeah.
But I mean, does he actually think he had no free will? I mean, what if he didn't follow him? He'd probably be sitting at home right now watching the game, having a beer, having a good time.
That level of introspection isn't possible because you know what? It might make him feel bad. It's much easier to say it was God's plan. It was God's plan. I had no control.
I think he doesn't feel bad at all, and it's God's plan is just an insincere cop-out.
The prosecution may use that TV interview as evidence, by the way. A white church has blocked a wedding of two black individuals, Charles and Tiandrea Wilson, or Tiandrea, or Teandrea. I'm not exactly sure how her name is pronounced. This is in Crystal Springs, Mississippi. This is the First Baptist Church of Crystal Springs and presided over by the pastor, Dr. Stan Weatherford. Okay, well, apparently it became controversial. This is a predominantly white church. They didn't like the idea that there would be a black couple being married. Let's look at a little bit of the coverage here.
Wants answers, and the church pastor is questioning the mindset of some of the members of his congregation who caused the problem in the first place. David Kenny has our top story.
Right.
They had set the date, printed up, and mailed out all the invitations, but the day before wedding bells were to ring for Charles and Tiandrea, they say they got some bad news from the pastor.
Congregation had decided that no black couple could be married at their church. And that if he went on to have to marry us, then they would vote him out and he would be put out the church.
Right. So basically pressure from the congregation, Louis. They didn't want black people getting married. Now,
so this man of God says, okay, that's fine. I'll cave into the pressure of these racist, backwards morons. How is that how is that representative of that religion?
It sounds exactly what Jesus would do. Let's take a listen to Dr. Stan Weatherford defending himself. Let's see.
Weatherford says he was taken by surprise by what he calls a small minority against the black marriage at the church.
This had never been done here before, so it was setting a new precedence. And there were those who reacted to that because...
By the way, it was setting a new precedence. Yeah.
Of that.
Weatherford went on and performed the wedding at a nearby church.
But I didn't want to have a controversy within the church, and I certainly didn't want a controversy to affect the wedding of Charles and Tiandria.
This just makes me sick.
He didn't want to stand up for what is right because he's spineless, cowardly.
That's exactly right. If you bow to racist pressure and do something incredibly racist, are you also racist? Like, can we really say he's completely innocent here because he just wanted it to be a nice day. So he said, hey, if the congregation doesn't want black people getting married, what about doing a sermon about your racist congregation, right? I mean, let's stand up here, do something.
Why not try and convince them that that racism is wrong and that they're misguided? It's
incredible. It really is incredible. Last thing here, Fox News' Martha McCallum is being criticized by some for what is being described as laughing at a woman's wheelchair accident. Now, initially, I went into this assuming that I was going to be incredibly offended by it. I want to play the clip for you because I actually have what you may be surprised by, a different view on this. Let's take a look.
Boy, the wheelchair tumbled down the stairs that was caught on tape. It happened at a train station in Boston. Look at this. I'm not sure how she thought she was going to be able to successfully get up there. Over the poor lady went.
Okay, so there we had a little bit of a technical issue. So Martha McCallum goes on to just kind of laugh about it, okay? I don't actually think that this is, she says, I don't mean to laugh, it's not funny, I hope she's okay, right, guys? And people were saying, oh, she's so evil. I actually think that disabled or not, in a wheelchair or not, it's kind of stupid to try to go up an escalator
in a
wheelchair, okay? Now, maybe the elevator was broken and this place was supposed to be wheelchair accessible and it wasn't, and there was some kind of big issue, and Martha McCallum is perceived as being insensitive because of what happened. We don't know any of that. But laughing at idiocy is not laughing at disability, assuming that this was just something stupid that somebody tried. Not to mention that afterwards the woman got up. Once she fell out of the chair and the wheelchair tumbled, the woman stood up and walked down the stairs.
Yeah. I saw the clip and I laughed at it. It was an incredibly stupid thing to attempt.
And
you know what? Proof that she stood up afterwards that she has no idea what she's doing with a wheelchair, and probably just has no experience with them.
There's plenty of things that I've been critical when it comes to Martha McCallum. I just don't think this is really the fight to pick.
No.
If I'm wrong, email me, tell me. Let's take a break. A few more stories I want to get to. Stay tuned. We're back from vacation. DavidPakman.com/summer going on until tomorrow night. Free t-shirt with a yearly membership. Check it out.
The David Pakman Show at DavidPakman.com. The David Pakman Show at DavidPakman.com.
Welcome back to the David Pakman Show. The best way to support the David Pakman Show is through a membership. Go to davidpakman.com/membership, or for the next couple of days, if you want a free t-shirt with your yearly membership, go to davidpakman.com/summer. A man has been charged after contacting little leaguers on Facebook. This is a picture of the man over my shoulders here. He is 44 years old, and his name is Michael Hamer. He started contacting members of the Crystal Little League via Facebook. This, of course, in Crystal, Minnesota, according to the Crystal Police Department. And a mother of a Little League player said she went on her son's Facebook and noticed a message from this individual asking to go to a movie at the Mall of America. Apparently, also other solicitations included asking children to engage in sexual conduct and possession of pornographic work involving children, which is very, very strange, Lewis. And the criminal complaint describes a sting operation which involved police creating a fictitious Facebook profile for a 12-year-old boy who played in the Little League. and posing as the boy to contact this individual. The individual claimed to be 25 years old. He's, of course, 44, inviting him to go to a Twins game. Now, the question I have here, of course, this guy has serious issues. I actually want to have a discussion, and I hope we can have it in a serious way, Louis. Is it unfair to stereotype the looks of certain types of people when it's actually funny? Because when I told a bunch of people about this story, they described this guy, knowing nothing about the story, exactly the way that he is in the picture, kind of having what some describe as the so-called creepy eyes, bald fat guy with, some people said mustache, some people said facial hair. You know, he clearly here has shaved to some extent. So my question is it unfair to have certain stereotypes, or is it normal to have stereotypes about what certain people look like? Now, for example, let's be very clear here. What I am not saying here is that if you see a black person, you should assume they're more likely to rob you, right? Which is a very important racist stereotype in American popular culture. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, when you see a certain type of guy hanging around the playground, maybe there is something to a certain stereotype, because this guy does fit to a certain extent a look that is very common. Now, there may be a medical explanation for why somebody who is a, quote, pedophile seems to sometimes share certain physical traits. I don't know. I'm just saying, should we not be open to that possibility? And maybe there is a medical explanation for it.
Okay, if someone's conducting a study on that, let them. Stereotypes exist. This is a popular stereotype. Is it unfair? At the moment, I would say yes, it is unfair.
Fair enough. And again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
Just that, because so many of the emails I got said, this is exactly what I thought this guy looked like. And should we not be able to talk about that, or is it politically incorrect? I don't know. I asked the questions, ladies and gentlemen. You tell me.
We can talk about it, but we need concrete evidence to make any judgments.
All right. Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann, speaking of people we make judgments about, Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann suggesting that Hillary Clinton's longtime Deputy Chief of Staff, Huma Abedin, also known as the wife of former Congressman Anthony Weiner, known for sending out a number of penis tweets involving
his wiener.
His wiener, exactly. Nothing short of that. Suggesting that Huma Abedin may be evidence of infiltration of Muslim extremists in government. I know, it's incredible. And John McCain really didn't like it. Here's what he had to say about it.
Senator John McCain denounced accusations by Bachmann and 4 other Republican members of Congress. They sent a letter to the Obama administration last month accusing Huma Abedin, a key aide to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, of influencing U.S. policy because of family connections to the Muslim Brotherhood.
Right. Okay, so then what did John McCain have to say about it? This is what he had to say about it.
It has been alleged that Huma Abedin, a Muslim American, is part of a nefarious conspiracy to harm the United States by unduly influencing U.S. foreign policy at the Department of State in favor of the Muslim Brotherhood and other Islamist causes. On June 13th, 5 members of Congress wrote to the Deputy Inspector General of the Department of State demanding that he begin an investigation into the possibility that Huma Abedin and other American officials are using their influence to promote the cause of Muslim Brotherhood within the U.S. government. The information offered to support these serious allegations is based on a report, quote, "The Muslim Brotherhood in America," which is produced by the Center for Security Policy. And I'd like to point out, I have worked with the Center for Security Policy. Its friend ahead of it is a longtime friend of mine. But still, this report is scurrilous.
Okay, so you get the point there. John McCain, in his typical long-winded fashion, saying he thinks it's completely absurd to accuse Huma Abedin of this. And it is. What is Michelle Bachmann doing? What's the upside, right? I mean, do they think this will hurt Obama to say that Hillary Clinton's Deputy Chief of Staff may be somehow working for the Muslim Brotherhood? What's the angle? I don't get it. It's good to be back. We'll be back with a new show tomorrow. Join us on the bonus show, davidpakman.com/membership. See you then.
David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.